Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you're going to get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and ultimately stay on the same team no matter the challenge that comes up. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just call us the Freemans.
And today we have a special episode as we're going to be telling a little bit more of our own story, where yes, my parents are still married and Jocelyn, yours, got divorced, but both of these upbringings have impacted our marriage. And we want to share a lot more about that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is really important. It might not be this episode's not going to be as tactical, practical skill teaching. Next episode, we're going to go into that more. But I really encourage you to listen because I think a lot of you will relate to our stories and our upbringings, but you're going to have many ahas along the way. And here's the thing, your upbringing without awareness does impact your relationship right now. And it might not be something you talk about on your first or second or third date. And we actually know a lot of couples who've been married for years and didn't really dig deep into their upbringing. So we're going to go into this, share a story. I'm excited to ask you some questions, Aaron.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest here in the beginning. I have not subscribed too much to this idea of pasts, or a lot of people like to talk about the inner child work. I just don't like going in the past necessarily, hence why we do coaching, right? We don't do therapy, we don't do counseling, we don't dive into and keep on digging in the past, as I'm more interested in creating the life and the relationship that couples want. That's what all of this is about. And at the same time, I have to acknowledge that, yes, even though both of us have these different upbringings, I mean, my parents, even I guess just to jump right into it, right? My parents were so loving and always out for my brother and I. They showed up at every sporting event. My dad early on actually left a high-paying corporate job in which would now like be Verizon. He could have been like the president of Verizon by now. And he gave that up because the job was requiring him to be at the office more and more. He got this promotion. This was like the last kind of straw. And the promotion said, congrats to all of you execs. This is going to be the time where, hey, tell your wife and kids you'll see them some other time later because we're going in here deep. We're all going to be successful. We're all going to get rich. My dad was like, thank you so much. I quit.
Wow.
And I was in second grade. And so it just kind of gives you a sense. My parents were always out to be around my brother and I. Very loving. Grew up in a church. I went to even a Christian high school from kindergarten through 12th grade. All of this being said, when it came to emotions, when it came to my parents getting into any sort of conflict for themselves, what I saw was my dad would pretty much just stop talking and would basically just remove himself from the conversation. And so I never saw anyone yell or scream. I never even saw an argument. I never even saw them necessarily talking to each other while emotion was, I'll say high, but even basically much emotion at all.
Yeah.
What we would maybe categorize some negative emotion, some sadness, some discouragement, anything like that. So what did that leave me with? I want to jump into your beginning story as well. It left me with that's how you handle emotion. So a lot of people know my story of I only had a few girlfriends up till almost 30 years old, mostly broken up with. I just didn't see myself as valuable. Never had sex before. Had a lot of shame and embarrassment around that. And so I never really allowed myself to feel any emotion. And then I can share more. That ended up being a place I really saw was having an impact in our relationship.
Yeah, thank you for giving that overview. I want to ask you some questions and I'll share my story. But I also want, for those of you listening, because we're going to be going into our story, we're going to ask each other questions about that. The reason that this is something we encourage you to listen to is because when we're doing a session with a couple, it might be like, okay, I don't know why I do this thing in the relationship. I don't know why I get up and leave the conversation when I'm triggered. Or I don't know why I'm jealous or insecure or ask a lot of questions because I'm not trusting. And when we talk to the couple and go deeper, like beneath just what they think it's because their partner did something, a lot of it stems from your upbringing. And we aren't taught how to go and do that reflection. And so a lot of times it looks like it's just showing up in your relationship because of what your partner's doing now.
Or this is just who I am.
Right.
I think that's one thing I really felt was this is how I talk. This is how I sort of handle any disagreements, which honestly I really wasn't in any until actually a couple years into our own marriage. And I think that can happen for a lot of couples. You get married and there really isn't a lot that you might disagree on, at least from my perspective. There wasn't really places where we had big differences of opinion so that or built up any sort of emotional triggers yet. And so I didn't really see it till a couple years in. But I'll talk more about that. So what about for you? The early on stages of how your parents interacted where, yes, yours got divorced. And I think part of this is people could look at my story and say, my parents have been together 42 years now and was very loving, very supportive of us. And it would seem like that shouldn't have any impact except a positive one.
Right.
Yet, so here you are with your parents got divorced. Talk a little bit about how that has impacted your habits or the way that you've approached our marriage.
Yeah, so to give you all a little bit more of my story, so my parents were like madly in love when I was a little girl. Like, thankfully, my formative years, those first 3-4 years, I think there was a lot of love in the home. My parents were madly in love, and I know that because family, cousins, aunts would tell us like that in the church that we did go to at the time, people would be like, "Oh my gosh, there's them. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous of their relationship. They look like best friends." There was, I mean, when you looked at pictures of them, you could see the love radiating from them. So I have really cute baby pictures with all of us as a family. And then pretty quickly, I remember being a kid and just hearing more arguments and hearing them get louder and hearing them get more intense. And I would see my mom crying and I'd see my dad want to, kind of leave. And I didn't know what was happening as a kid. None of us really do, right? Like, we just know, like, oh, mommy and daddy aren't getting along, and you feel scared and you feel sad. And it really turned quickly. Like, it went from them being in love to more and more disagreements to we're getting a divorce, and then a very intense divorce, you guys. Like, this wasn't like a civil thing. It was cops called, name calling, yelling, divorce court, threats, all of these different things. And I think any of them were listening, they would know like that they're totally different people now. And I don't have any judgment about what happened there because it was just my experience. It was me watching, and I know that a lot of people would say I'm not my best self when going through a divorce, but the impact on me was I didn't get to see what healthy conflict looked like. So I saw escalated conflict and I saw go from madly in love to resentment to divorce, having no idea how that actually happens. So I didn't even know not only what was really the breakdown, what led to that, what led to those super intense conflicts. How did two people who are in love get divorced? I didn't have any way of processing that. And so in my teen years, I started to become a rescuer. And so my early dating experiences, I wanted to be good enough. Like, I created this story when I was a kid, like, oh, I must not have been good enough, or I did something wrong that led to this. I think that's an unconscious belief that a lot of us have as kids when our parents get divorced. And so I became a rescuer in my dating experiences, meaning...
Well, and actually, did you have the experience of rescuing / protecting your brother during that time, your younger brother?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, great point. Absolutely. I wanted to protect him from the pain, from the sadness. I would do everything that I could to like distract us and go play. And so definitely. And I think that not being able to completely, rescue my mom, my dad, my brother, I became a rescuer in relationships. And I wanted to be able to fix it. So I would actually pick people that weren't the healthiest for me because it was like, okay, I can be good enough. I can be, I can be the one to fix them. Yeah. It was really interesting. So that carried into teen years, early 20s, and I know we can share more of that and then even leading up to us getting together. But that was a big thing.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we wanted to cover here is even though we started our marriage off with personal development, growing individually, seeing that the past as an idea doesn't just live in our past. This is what we got early on from personal development, but that past is sort of painting a future that you live into. And I think that is one of the big things I got for myself as an individual person. But then it kind of showed me even more so about how my past, with what I saw my parents do, more so what I didn't see them do, that was giving me this future. So it actually was sort of causing or sourcing the actions that I was taking. So to give everyone listening more of an example, so what would start to happen a few years in as we started to get into disagreements, or it wasn't just difference of opinion, really as emotions started to come up for me, which for me is typically a feeling of I'm being sort of dominated, I'm being pressured. And that was kind of one of the things that I felt early on was I'm being pressured to talk before I'm ready. And then it was like repetitive. You're like, where did you go? Because what I would do is if we were driving in the car, I might look out the side window. I would be more quiet. You know, you might even think of this as I was isolating or shutting down, in a sense. That's what it might look like. I never really left the room, but I just kind of stopped really talking, and I would be processing what I'm going through. And so it was exactly what my dad would do. I thought that this was the best thing I could possibly do.
And that's all probably also what you thought like men do. Like that's men hold it together.
I don't know if I even took it that far.
Right.
And I think one of the things I really want to iron out here is in those moments, you don't really think like, is this what men do?
Right.
Is
No, it's
this what my
unconscious.
dad was doing? No, I just do it.
Right.
And I felt what I was doing, because this is also who I am, that's better than yelling. It's better than being reactive. It's better than getting physical, which, you know, you see in movies, or you do see, you know, maybe some other friends' parents do those things as well. So I really thought this was the most beneficial thing I could do. But what I started to notice was two things. You ended up sharing with me how that had you feel isolated and like pushed away, like you didn't know what was going on. And then that caused you, you know, I'm guessing even more frustration because you don't know what's going on in here. Then maybe you have some uncertainty. And so the other thing I did notice too, and we were talking about this on our group coaching session last night, the more I would limit feeling what I would label as a negative emotion, which could be I'm feeling defensive, I'm feeling pressured, I'm feeling rushed. Maybe I feel criticized. Maybe I feel somewhat judged in a particular conversation. The more I shut that down, the more I limit any emotion, the more I limit the highs, if you will. I wasn't feeling maybe the levels of happiness or joy or just like extravagance or fulfillment, right? So the more you suppress any emotion, the less likely you are to experience what you would label as super high or good emotions. And I can start to feel how that kind of creates this cruise control type of feel.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of couples go through, is they feel sort of this routine or the mundane. And it's like, well, how did we get here? Because we used to have passion and we used to like really be excited about what we were doing together. So how does that happen? It happens from avoiding feeling emotion.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question going back to your upbringing, right? So here you are, you don't see your parents have disagreements. So then I'm curious, in like your teen years, when maybe you had a crush on a girl or you wanted to date someone, which I know, you know, you maybe had a little bit more of a limited, you let yourself have a limited experience of dating. How did then you handle your emotions or uncomfortable things in those early kind of dating or crush experiences?
If you were to guess in one word, what would you say?
Complete suppression.
Yeah. I was thinking of just avoiding, but complete suppression. Basically, yeah. And when I look back, that's not surprising. Because even though I wasn't in a relationship, you know, if I'm basically modeling what I saw, I totally avoided it. So what does that look like when you're not in a relationship? I avoided putting myself out there. I was very not self-confident, self-conscious. I did not have confidence. And I was scared. I was scared to have conversations. I was thinking, not only I wasn't bold, I was the opposite of that. I just really didn't do much at all. I didn't put myself out there. I never even really told very many girls that I was really interested in them.
Yeah.
And I just thought that if they were interested in me, then it would kind of naturally make itself available and we progressed down a relationship, and it just really never happened.
Yeah.
So basically it's like I'm sitting back. There were a few girls I was really interested in. I didn't really say much. I mean, I was kind of in like 2 or 3 relationships, sort of, but then they just seemed to just fade away. And I found out one of them was like seeing somebody else. And so, yeah, it was really total suppression. I just avoided any emotion. And it was probably the feeling of, man, if I even tell them how I feel or was to ask them out or whatever, then I'm going to be rejected. So you're totally right. It was basically complete suppression.
And then going back to what you were saying too, current day, or really the thing we've been working through the last few years in our own development journey has been when you have uncomfortable feelings in our relationship, it took you time to feel safe to share those things, you know, to not feel like the appropriate thing is to shut down, be quiet, as you talked about. And I know it's been really awesome to watch you open up and be more emotional and even be with my emotions. I think that was one thing early on that we were kind of working through, was how to not take each other's emotions personally. And just reflecting back, I think because you didn't really see your mom get that emotional or your dad, was it uncomfortable early on to be with my emotion?
Oh, this is a good question I hadn't really thought of before. I would say yes, primarily because either I felt like I was at fault or maybe you were blaming me for it. So yeah, it's hard to feel that, especially in a relationship that, you know, what you were feeling like was caused by me.
Right.
So to either like take responsibility for that was very difficult.
Yeah.
Because that actually felt like all the other relationships. Like if I caused you any sort of disappointment or hurt, then, you know, I'm just back on this familiar path that this is probably going to end. You're probably going to want to end it soon.
You know what? I just had a flashback too. Okay, so I know we're kind of jumping timelines, by the way, guys. We're going like our you know, youth, and then we're going to present day, and then we're going to our teen years, but that's kind of how stories go sometimes. So I had this flashback back to right before meeting you. So before I met Aaron, I went through a lot of self-development. I took myself through it because, I mean, I just was invited into it. My dad invited me into self-development. And one of the ahas I had was how I kept having the same relationship experiences over and over again. Literally, almost the same exact type of people that I felt like I had to rescue, I had to quote unquote fix. Now, they had a lot of amazing things about them. Don't get me wrong. I deeply am grateful for the relationships I had because I learned so much, and I wish them all the best. But
Well, one quick thing I want to say about that. I think what you're pointing to, you also mentioned last night on our group Upgrade Your Partnership coaching call. And it was, though I get what you're saying about the past relationships, I think what you're pointing to is they reflected back to you these places within you that were still mirroring maybe the patterns or the emotions from your childhood, from your upbringing.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not even really about them.
No.
They were just showing you the different aspects of what was already in there for you.
Totally. And it was like I didn't get to fulfill something in my younger years. And so I had to keep trying to fulfill it in a certain relationship. So it was the same experience over and over again, trying to fix someone, have someone open up to me. And so right before meeting you, I went through self-development, had these ahas. Oh my gosh, I've been the one creating these same experiences over and over again. And here's what was interesting. I realized I was partly addicted to drama. It was almost like I wasn't attracted to someone stable. And you were like stable, you know?
I was stable.
there was, of course, emotional work to do and things to still work through, but like you didn't need quote unquote fixing. And I think a lot of, you know, women or people who didn't get to be the hero or the rescuer growing up because of maybe a divorce or something happening in the family, keep wanting to attract that drama. And so when they get into a relationship that is with a partner that doesn't need that fixing, it can almost feel like boring or you want to start the drama. That was an aha. Did you have a question come to you?
that was primarily what I was going to ask you. So if you're addicted to drama, I mean, I guess, one, why do you think that is? Or what would happen then if the drama wasn't there?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't feel like I was getting attention. It was like I needed that attention, that I needed the hunt for love. Like I needed that like almost dopamine effect of like seeking for their like proof that they love me. And how I would get that proof was through having a disagreement and then, you know, them fighting back for me or me fighting back for them. And so I needed that like proof of love in not the most healthy ways.
How come you think that this drama or this tension back and forth, why does that equate to love?
Gosh, I think, oh, you know what? It's a good question. What just came to me when you said that was because I made up this story that, you know, oh, people who are in love can just fall out of love. And, you know, men can't be trusted. And I had all these other stories get created from my parents' relationship and their divorce. I didn't see them, quote unquote, fight for each other. And so I needed to be good enough for someone to fight back for me.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like I needed to be good enough that they fight for me. Mm-hmm. And so then what was funny, again, switching timelines a little bit. So when we're together, you guys, because I had this kind of dysfunctional relationship with love and conflict and all attention, all those things. And I'd done this self-development. I wanted to do relationships differently. And I met you. Okay, we're going to, I think, do a video on this too. But when I told you I loved you, it was the funniest experience ever. So I never said I love you unconditionally to people. It was, I'll say I love you when I'm confident they'll say it back. And I'll say I love you when, you know, I feel like they're going to show me. I just had this dysfunctional relationship with love. I wanted to say it to you even if you didn't say it back to me.
Which I didn't.
Right. So this is it, you guys. I knew it was the day. I was like, I feel this love. I was like, I do feel this love for him. I'm going to tell him. So I went to his place and he was doing laundry and things like that. So I said, hey, there's something I want to tell you. And I'm telling this for me. You don't have to say anything back. Like, I need to say this for me. And so I just said, you know, I love you. And no joke, you guys. He gets up.
I think I did say thank you, which I know that's probably been in a movie.
Yeah, he did say thank you, but he literally got up and started to fold shirts.
Yeah.
That was it. And so I'm sitting on the bed and I'm smiling and, you know, inside and out because I was prepared for him not necessarily saying it back. And he starts folding laundry and then I'm like, okay, he feels really uncomfortable. So I end up leaving. It'd be funny to see myself
now.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like abrupt, but I know within a few minutes I was asking, hey, do you mind leaving? Right. It was like a Sunday, so I wanted to get my clothes folded, yes. Do my domestic chores, and get ready for the week.
Right.
Which at the time, I thought that you being around for like domestic activities was like too much.
Exactly.
Yeah, the laundry thing. I'm like, that's too domestic.
It felt too committed. Too serious,
yeah,
right?
For sure.
So, you know, that's part of my journey was...
Well, I just wanted to share something because it's cool that you bring that up. That is the proof of what I was saying before. And I hadn't thought of this before. So me not seeing my parents allow their own emotion and express it with each other, then I didn't allow my own emotion throughout my entire life. Mm-hmm. No, really, like whatever it would be. Now, yes, I got excited because playing sports and we won like some championships. And so, of course, there's like the excitement there. But I think, you know, day-to-day life was pretty just average. So when it came to love, and I think I'm still being impacted by this today. I still feel I have a certain ceiling in which I allow myself to actually experience love. And I think for a lot of people, it's actually a scary thing. Like love for a certain level. Like you want to feel accepted, you want to be seen and understood, and you want to feel this like romance between a partner, right? So there's that love. When you think about the expansiveness of what love is, I think many of us are afraid to actually feel the depth that can go to. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because you almost like, maybe you don't feel worthy of it. Maybe you don't feel, maybe you feel like you would be almost destroyed by it. And what I mean is you would like lose yourself in that level of love.
Or I think also the fear of losing it.
Yeah, that's possible too. But my point here being is when you said that to me, it was so hard for me to be with. And I had only said, I love you, those words, like literally 5 times. That includes my mom and that includes my parents. I did not tell anybody ever that I loved them.
Yeah.
And so for you to say that to me, again, me only saying it a handful of times, like literally 5 times to anybody in my entire life, family members, parents, brother, and anyone. And I can't remember maybe anyone saying that they loved me except my parents. So it's like to hear that, oh my gosh.
Wow. I love that. And we've come so far. I'm amazed actually reflecting. And for those of you who are listening, you know, there may be things that you two haven't talked about, you know, your upbringing, how it's impacted you. Maybe you observe your partner have certain behaviors and you think, oh, maybe that comes from their childhood or their teen years or their past relationships. You know, I hope that listening to this story gets you to just kind of open up to it, open up to reflecting and talking. And I'm not ending the episode right now, but I do want to just say we're going to next episode give you some practical, tactical ways to identify what is impacting your relationship, like where it comes from the past. We've got some cool things that we'll be doing the next episode. But just number 1, be willing to do that reflection together. It's actually really bonding to get a glimpse, like imagining, you know, little Aaron and, you know, what happened to him growing up. And even when I reflect on my upbringing, in a way, I have a lot of compassion for myself and, you know, how far I've come or things that maybe I'm still bringing awareness to. And so I think it's this greater relationship to our journey and that we're here on earth not to be perfect people. We're not here on earth to pretend we have it all figured out. We believe, you know, I'll say it for myself, that part of our purpose of being here is to heal things, to have your past get resolved so that you can create a new future. And that takes reflecting, being willing to reflect on the past.
Mm-hmm. And I think what both of our stories show, it doesn't matter how good or bad your past was. Right. There were certain habits or patterns of action that you perceived and you just naturally take those on as that's how to operate as a human being. Right. That's how to operate as a partner. And so just to check out those things. Where do I have sort of automatic patterns or habits? Where do I have any limitations to experiencing a deeper sense of love and connection with my partner now? Mm-hmm. And I think of all the things that we learn and teach from all different kinds of teachers, the main thing is you don't want to live life unconsciously. You don't want to live life on automatic, on a cruise control. Mm-hmm. So you basically want to bring conscious awareness. You want to be in the present all the time. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, that opens up the range of what you can experience in life and you can experience with your partner.
It actually made me, I love that you talk about that having the awareness, because again, just a quick note, when we were dating and I had done the self-development, so I invited him into self-development. He was like, what is self-development? I went to college. What do you mean self-development?
I have a degree in engineering. Right. I don't need development any further.
And so here was interesting. So I had been doing it for several years. So I had awareness that things he was doing were from his past. And so I didn't take it personally. And that's what I hope.
You also didn't say that to me, which I just now am recognizing. You didn't say, oh, hey, I go to personal development. I also notice what you're doing is from your past.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'd have been like, no, I'm out.
But what was interesting, you didn't know where that was coming from. Like you said at the beginning of this episode, that was just kind of like, well, this is who I am. You had this relationship, like exactly, this is who I am. You had no awareness that your behaviors, your tendencies came from the past.
Or that they could change.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I brought that up was if you're listening to this and you have started self-development and hopefully your partner has joined you on that journey of self-development, remember that any of their behaviors, tendencies, patterns, 95% of the time, just kind of creating a number, aren't because of you.
Oh, yeah, that was another big thing from yesterday.
It is just some programming from their upbringing or their teen years or past relationships, or depending on how long you two have been together, could have been things that got formed from you two patterning together, creating patterns together.
Yes, that's really, I had thought of something really powerful, but then you gave a second one. When we talk about your past, yes, we talked about your upbringing as a title on this podcast, but your past can also be last year.
Yes.
Your past could be the first half of quarantine in 2020,
Yep.
if you're listening to this in future years. So it's also something to notice. So when you start to notice that your upbringing much further back in your past could be impacting, and probably still is if you haven't looked at this, having an impact on your relationship now. But you'll also want to see, as you just said, where are your current triggers together, your patterns of trying to be safe, of defending yourself. Those patterns could also be now what's running part of the show.
Absolutely.
Now. So your past can really even be a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago.
Absolutely. So that's what we're going to go deeper into next episode. And so I hope you enjoy hearing some of our story. Before closing out, number one, we actually want to do something special this month. Can't believe it's going to be like September. 2 things. 4 reviews. So the reviews literally give us life. When we read a podcast review, it gives us life. It also helps us reach more couples because the algorithms, the iTunes, all that, it looks for reviews. So the way that more couples can hear this is through you writing something. It takes you 15 seconds, you guys. But here's the thing. We want to make it fun and impactful, and something that has been top of conversation for us has been human trafficking, especially with children being trafficked. And so for every review that we get this month, so you actually just review it on the platform that you're listening, we're going to donate $10 to Operation Underground Railroad. We really respect what that organization is doing. And so let's raise some money for them. And it's as simple as, giving is already something that's a part of our life, but it's a way that you can be a part of that giving. So please go write a review today, and then we'll donate $10 to Operation Underground Railroad.
Yeah, make it a goal for us to give a lot.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Absolutely. And then what else do we have coming up?
Oh, well, actually, we haven't even told anybody this.
Nobody
so this
knows.
is just for you, the podcast listeners. On October 10th, we're actually going to be doing our couples workshop once again. We're actually going to be doing it live from studio, so you could participate literally from anywhere in the world.
Which we have
it's
listeners
from
India, Thailand, the UK, Australia. We know
Canada,
know
for
you're
sure,
listening.
yeah.
We see you. We know you're listening.
So we haven't actually put this out there at all. So podcast listeners, you're the very first to hear, but we're going to be doing our couples workshop. And this is going to take you through exercises of communication to truly understand, to listen to each other in a way that you feel seen and understood, and even more love. We'll go into the elements of love. Many people say, well, oh yeah, I love my partner, but how do you know? How do you measure that? Right. So we actually have the 4 elements of love, and one of the biggest exercises is disappearing disappointments. Your disappointments in your relationship come from expectations that you have,
and we got a
and
really
largely,
cool exercise.
Yeah, expectations that you probably haven't expressed. And so we have a wonderful exercise. So this couples workshop is not you just listening to us teach. We teach 4 huge principles, but we actually have you do the exercise right then and there with your partner. And then being on live, you can ask questions. Being in studio, we have a way for you to video conference in with us personally and get live coaching. It literally is amazing. We're excited to do this. So being a podcast listener, also, we wanted to give you $40 off of the price for anybody else too.
So like Aaron said, we have not told anyone. There hasn't been an Instagram post about this, an email going out, none of it. So you are literally the first people to find out. And we're going to do a very short term coupon. So you can get $40 off by entering in podcast 40, all together, all lowercase.
40.
You go to thecouplesworkshop.com. thecouplesworkshop.com. Type it in your URL right now, and you enter that coupon. So it's podcast 40. Get that $40 off. That's only lasting till our anniversary.
Yeah, September 11th.
September 11th. And that's when we're going to start a lot of promotion. So that coupon code's not going to anyone else except podcast listeners. So go get that. It's only going to be active until September 11th. And here's the thing. Let's be honest. You're looking for plans. quarantine, you're tired of the Netflix, maybe you're getting a little bit of, social time in, but this is going to be a weekend day together that you will never forget. And you can watch this from the comfort of your home, the privacy of your home. It's going to be a day that you don't forget. Go read. We have so many testimonials about how this was life-changing.
And I want to say this too. When we talk about forgetting, so memory is actually built in from repetition and from emotion. So we say you're not going to forget this. It's not just going to be an idea because you're going to feel this. This is going to get rooted as a memory because of the emotion. And we talked about, like I mentioned, I have felt, and even though I have a ceiling of love, but if you've been feeling like more of the coasting, of the cruise control type of routine, that's because you're not allowing yourself to feel deep enough.
Yeah.
And the exercises in the couples workshop are going to allow you to see your partner, hear from them, understand them, and vice versa, that you're going to deepen the depth of the emotion you can feel.
I love that. Yeah, communication, love is a huge... So go to the page, go to thecouplesworkshop.com, read it, register, get that $40 off, podcast 40, and let us know that you registered. Send us a message on Instagram. We're always social. We're responding to all of your messages. And I can't wait to see you in the couples workshop.
That's going to be fun, yeah.
So thanks again for listening. Next episode, we'll be going more into ways that you can identify how your upbringing is impacting your relationship so you don't sabotage. We're going to talk about some sabotaging behaviors. It's going to be powerful. But send us a message that you listened. Write that review. Let's give $10 for every review to Operation Underground Railroad. We love you guys. Freemans are out.